Alright, you guys, this part 2 of Paradigm Profiles, from the boys club to the barrio to cartel hitters. Part 2. Not a lot of money when you think about taking this kind of sacrifice on the chin for the home team. This was a highly publicized incident that would only continue to gain more traction with time. So although $300K was a nice little chunk of change, it really wasn't a whole lot in the big scheme of things, especially if things fell wayside and if the political fallout just reached a point of no return. Popeye instructed Pato to meet with the Logan Heights gang members in San Diego and ask for 2 volunteers. The meeting took place in a cemetery adjacent to Logan Heights. Spooky and Puma, Juan Vascones Hernandez, volunteered to surrender themselves for Popeye and the AFO. Popeye contacted Benjamin the following day and informed him he had 2 people who would turn themselves in. Once again, Popeye came through for the home team and for the AFO like a champ. But get this, Spooky and Puma did raise their hands and were taken to La Ocho in Tijuana. They were both taken to Mexico City, where they gave this canned statement as Benjamin and the Mexican AG negotiated to make the incident go away. Spooky was later murdered in his cell, and Puma remains in custody today. This happened in Puente Grande. As for their families, they were never paid much and remained extremely dysfunctional and criminal. This is exactly what both Puma and Spooky both had concerns about, and they communicated this to Popeye. Like they said, anything can happen over the course of a few years, and it did. The other crazy thing about this that a lot of people don't know about is this. What's amazing is that Spooks' brother, Spanky, later joined Popeye and Pato and was indicted by law enforcement for the attempted kidnap of Sirac Bolognian and other criminal acts in furtherance of the AFO. He received more time than the AFO brothers themselves. Meanwhile, Bayardo Gory Robles was arrested and taken to Mexico City to be interrogated by MFJP. Gory gave the statement and identified those gang members working for CH and the AFO. However, Gory only knew the gang members by their street names, or Picassos, and gave up the following: Spooky, Puma, Cougar, Pato, Zigzag, Gizmo, Popeye, Tarzan, Night Owl, all from Logan, Boo Boo, Lalo Reyes, and Lepo. The government of Mexico issued provisional arrest warrants for all the names of the gang members and submitted the list of Picassos to the U.S. government. It was at this point that DEA Special Agent Jack Robertson and Agent Steve Duncan, 2 seasoned gang detectives, quickly teamed up with SDPD gang unit and matched true names with every moniker. This was devastating to the Logan Heights gang members, who assumed that they wouldn't be identified. It became obvious that too many people were talking and everyone became suspect. One individual in particular, named Jose Cracks Cruz, who was one of Popeye's hand-picked enforcers, became an immediate target. Popeye heard that Cracks was talking too much and that he might be giving up information to the wrong team. Cracks was from Logan Heights and was one of Popeye's boys, but as far as Popeye was concerned, business was business. Cracks had been shot several times in Logan Heights by some of the other enforcers for talking too much about what they do for the AFO. Some of the other enforcers who knew the family of Cracks went to pay them some money for his funeral after shooting him 7 times. Even though they thought they killed him, they still respected the family enough to help bury his body. What they didn't know is that Cracks had survived the hit and was still alive. Cracks' mother said, "God bless, he's still alive." But the cops already heard about what was going on and had Cracks under round-the-clock observation while he was recovering at the hospital. Law enforcement apparently attempted to flip Cracks in the hospital by telling him why he was hit and what had happened at his mom's house. That his mom unknowingly told his would-be killers that he was still alive. He was told that they were definitely going to try to finish him off, but that they'd protect him if he cooperated. But Cracks was terrified and just demanded to be moved from the hospital. He was in fact moved and he recovered, but Cracks refused to cooperate at the time. However, in 1997, Cracks had a change of heart. While housed at the California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo, he finally admitted that he was shot by his fellow gang members, Pato, Sniper, and Gizmo. Cracks was serving a 10-year sentence for rape and was deported upon his release from prison. It was only after talking to his mother that they realized that someone had botched the hit. This only made DEA agent Jack Robertson and Steve Duncan turn up the heat. Beginning of May of 1993, these cops detained all those who were identified in the U.S. and deported, expelled, and extradited them to Mexico. The fallout from this blasphemous blunder would reverberate for years to come, and the Arellano Felix cartel, justifiably guilty, morally and legally, for many atrocities, would become the sole beneficiaries of a blundered hit. The Arellano Felix brothers became some of the world's most wanted criminals, and Mexico demanded justice as millions of Catholics would not forgive the murder of one of their cardinals. Many of the enforcers were rounded up in the United States and Mexico, and summarily dispatched to Mexican prisons to face charges related to the cardinal's murder. And they were all despised and hated to a degree never before seen by the Mexican citizens. In those days in Mexico, their system was Napoleonic, and suspects were considered guilty until proven innocent. From 1992 to 1996, Steve Duncan was a member of the Violent Crimes Task Force, gang group comprised of federal, state, and San Diego law enforcement agencies. Duncan was cross-deputized by the Drug Enforcement Administration to enforce the federal drug laws, or Title 21 of the United States Criminal Code. At the time, he was investigating members of the Logan Heights street gang and other Hispanic gangs working as assassins for the Tijuana cartel. On a sunny Saturday, on June 25, 1994, at a Days Inn in Monterey Park, California, a dozen or more Mexican Mafia members met in one of the rooms. LA Sheriff Sergeant Richard Valdemar, a member of a multi-agency task force, monitored the videotape meeting from an empty room next door. You know how it goes. These law enforcement officers had the room all rigged up with high-tech audio and video surveillance equipment so they could listen in and hang on every word that these guys spoke. These recorded meetings are becoming more and more common. We've seen it in Operation Black Widow, the MS Rico indictment back in the early 90s, etc., etc. The meeting was recorded with both audio and videotapes. Attending this meeting was Jose Bat Marquez. This is how law enforcement first became aware of the Christine Discotheque shootout and the assassination of Cardinal Posadas, as narrated by Bat. Bat's purpose was to ask his fellow Imeros to assist Popeye and the Arellanos to find and kill Chapo Guzman, the head of the Sinaloa cartel. The Arellanos offered $2 million in whatever state they wanted in Mexico. They also offered drugs and heavy artillery and their help crossing it into the U.S. Bat warned it would not be easy. He said that Chapo neither drank nor used drugs. He takes care of his family and soldiers. He has a 40-man security force and drives a tricked-out four-wheel drive armored car. He does car bombings, but he does have a weakness. He worships Satan. He's into the Satanic Bible. He had a small son who was ill. Chapo would bring him to the U.S. to be treated because Chapo doesn't trust Mexican doctors, their conventional medicine, or their hospitals. Bat said he wanted to start a chemical lab store and would pick up 5 drums of ephedrine the following week in Mexico. He would keep the chemicals on the Mexican side of the border, but the Mexican Mafia carnales were welcome to all they wanted. Bat only asked for help on how to manufacture the meth. Several Mexican Mafia members who attended this meeting took trips to Tijuana in the days that followed. And this didn't come as a surprise. Bat said they were welcome to as much ephedrine as they wanted. He just needed help with the manufacturing part of it. Of course, that part of it would be on consignment. But in the meantime, several Imeros helped themselves to copious amounts of the raw chemicals to suit their own interests. So after several returned with either the chemicals or the finished product, 22 of them would be arrested on April 29, 1995 and charged under federal RICO statutes. In January of 1995, a multi-agency task force comprised of the DEA, FBI, INS, USMS, Customs, and the Chula Vista PD was formed in San Diego to combat the Arellano Felix organization. They would also eventually charge and convict numerous U.S. street gang members of the Mexican Mafia. Unknown to U.S. authorities, the government of Mexico had acquitted the gang members for the murder of the Cardinal, and in 1995, they trickled back into the United States. The case was too messy, there were too many implications, and nobody wanted to touch the political fallout. So it wasn't no surprise that Mexico didn't inform U.S. authorities of their release. As the enforcers were released, many of them returned to San Diego and other parts of the United States. San Diego law enforcement began to spot the released gangsters on the streets and reported their sightings to the U.S. Attorney. An angry U.S. Attorney, Alan Burson, tasked one of his federal prosecutors to lead the prosecution against the enforcers in the Southern District of California, and they initiated their own case against the Logan Heights gang members recruited by the AFO. Apparently, there was no way Burson was just going to sit back on his hands and allow these guys to get away with murder, especially for the murder of a cardinal. Agent Duncan was assigned as the case agent, and he went straight to work. In a short period of time, they developed a federal kingpin case against David Barron Corona and 9 enforcers. As a result of Operation Snow White, the title that authorities gave the operation, the government secretly indicted them in June of 1997 for several acts of violence and drug activity in furtherance of the AFO. The indictment remained sealed until Popeye was captured. The strategy was to arrest him before unsealing the indictment because the fear and concern was that he would threaten and kill the witnesses against him. Duncan and his fellow agents paid particular attention to those closest to Popeye, especially other enforcers who they knew about, but who had also been flying under the radar. Guys like Michael Jarbo, Pee-wee, and Ignacio Mesa, aka Wolfie, a gang member from Oceanside, California. They also believed that Melvin Gutierrez Quiros, Casper, was probably involved. Quinones' crew later killed Wolfie as they believed it was a round from his assault rifle that accidentally killed Popeye. Rivera personally murdered Pee-wee years later behind his own indiscretions. Others mentioned by the Mexican reporters were in custody or not involved. The reporters based some of their evidence on those that had been indicted or suspected might be involved. Popeye was the kingpin, and the principal overt act of the conspiracy was the murder of Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo. On February 14, 1996, Popeye was married to his second wife, Karina. The reception was held at the nightclub Baby Rock on Avenida Paseo de los Heroes in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico. Among others in attendance were notables Pato Quinones, Gustavo Gus Rivera Martinez, Arturo Kitty Paez Martinez, Arturo Chichi Granados, Adolfo Sammy Perez Zambrano, Raimundo Coach Corona Bartolomeu, and Federico Gordo Sanchez Valdez. Damn, why these guys got 5 names? With regards to Kitty Paez Martinez, a lot of people didn't know how much of an intricate role he played in helping Popeye recruit Logan Heights members for the AFO. He played a huge role. Also, another person from Logan that worked at NASCO shipyards was recruiting people to work in Tijuana until people started getting their heads chopped off. NASCO is a breeding ground for all the ex-convicts that get out of jail looking for a job because their parole officer is the one that stuck them there. Also, another one of the notables who attended the reception, Federico Gordo Sanchez Valdez, was from Logan Heights. Popeye tried to kill him in San Diego in 1994 as they feared he was passing information to the wrong people. Law enforcement tried to locate and inform Gordo that he was in trouble, but they could only find his mother and she was not helpful. Later they got lucky and found Gordo and his 2 homeboys in a Ford Taurus heading toward Logan Heights. After a high-speed chase down a one-way street, the San Diego Police Department suppression team arrested 2 of the 3 assassins. The one who got away was killed in a shootout in Playas later that year, where Aaron Smith and Fausto Maricon were killed also. On March 7, 1997, Popeye Barron, Big Popeye, Pato Quinones, and their crew of assassins murdered the wife of assassin-turned-witness Gory Robles as they were leaving their humble home in Tijuana to go to work. The family was in shock and terrorized as it happened in front of their community and extended family. With the blessing of the Mexican government, Gory, who was in Altiplano, was brought in with his extended family from Tijuana to the U.S. In total, about 30 of his family members were brought across the border and were housed in an extended stay hotel until the U.S. government could make more permanent arrangements for. Popeye's cell of the AFO was almost incestuous, and a flowchart of the families had to be developed to follow the family interrelationships and involvement. Popeye had 6 sisters, and each of their husbands or boyfriends were members of the AFO or had done illegal favors for them, from money laundering and drug trafficking to murder. It was a family affair, and at every juncture, they were all somehow involved. At minimum, they were also guilty of harboring a mass murdering monster and fugitive. Popeye's sister, Marissa Barron Quinones, or whatever she calls herself these days, was married to Marcos Quinones Sanchez. Authorities claim that Marissa, like the entire Barron family, was involved with aiding and abetting Popeye's enforcement and drug distribution responsibilities for the AFO. With regards to the women and what was said about Enedina, the sister of the Arellano Felix brothers, most of what was reported about Enedina is false. She is just one of the sisters. She is not the mother of Fernando Sanchez Arellano. Norma Alicia is. The women in the family never played a role, but chose not to do the right thing. But many of those family members of those who chose this path are prisoners in their own homes because the narcos will not let them do anything or go anywhere without reporting in, getting approval, and being escorted by one of the narcos. Ruth Serrano Corona, Benjamin's second wife, was very actively conducting business for Benjamin while he was in Altiplano. She would meet with those he told her to meet with and would use Enedina's name. If Enedina's name is being thrown around as a narco, it's because of Ruth. She is not a player, and anyone who knows anything about this organization would surely agree. On November 10, 1997, the Barron Arellano hit team killed 2 Mexican soldiers in front of the Tijuana courthouse. The Zeta weekly news magazine named David Popeye Barron as the assassin. On Thanksgiving Day, November 27, 1997, Popeye was killed in Tijuana, Baja California, during a shootout in an attempt to kill Jesus Blancornelius, the Mexican newspaper editor who printed unfavorable newspaper stories and editorials about Popeye and the AFO. It was called Friendly Fire. During the attack, a stray round struck the pavement, ricocheted, and fatally hit Popeye in the eye. Popeye was wearing a bulletproof vest and socks with 4-leaf clovers. His body was covered with prison-style tattoos, including MA across his chest, LHTS for Logan Heights, and 16 skulls, one for each of his hits. According to Cartel defectors, Popeye personally participated in hundreds of executions and was prepared to surrender his life in performance of his career occupation. His time on Earth had apparently expired. According to a family member who was present, Pato Quinones, who had been known to be a brutal assassin and loyal member of the Popeye crew, arrived at the house crying and holding his face. He had been cut by flying glass during the shootings and told the families of Popeye's death and how he had to leave him behind. Rivera and Pato spoke with Benjamin Arellano, and Popeye's crew were split up between Rivera and Pato Quinones. During the weekend following Popeye's death, Steve Duncan and his FBI partner, Jose Pepe Patino, the Mexican crime fighter of the SDPD gang suppression team, drove to San Diego County, contacting Popeye's family. 3 days had passed and no one had shown up at the morgue to claim Popeye's body in Tijuana. They were obviously aware of his death, but were fearful of the consequences of exposing themselves. Their strength, identity, and financial support were gone. To the agents who relentlessly tracked him, it was divine intervention. On February 5, 1998, the indictment was unsealed and 3 remaining subjects were arrested in San Diego. The 3 pled guilty to long prison terms. With the death of Popeye and prosecution of Logan Heights gang members, Duncan and his fellow agents received additional information on AFO enforcement. Martin Corona was identified as a subject who had successfully murdered many enemies on behalf of Popeye and the AFO. Although the prosecutor promised to indict more, she became alienated by the investigators who wanted her to prosecute harder and to prosecute more gangsters. She refused to work with the task force, and especially with Duncan, any longer. This is why Corona and all those who committed murders with him remain free. One by one, the Arellano Felix leadership began to fall. Jesus Labra Ibales, a cartel lieutenant, was arrested in March of 2000. Ismael El Mayo Higuera Guerrero was arrested in May. Arellano brother Benjamin was arrested in March 9, 2002. In February 2002, Arellano muscleman Ramon was on his way to meet rival Ismael Mayo Zambada in Mazatlan when he was shot by police loyal to Zambada. A few days later, Manuel Tarzan Herrera, an important Arellano smuggler, was arrested. Francisco Javier Arellano was arrested by the U.S. Coast Guard off the Baja California coast, and Eduardo Arellano Felix was arrested after a shootout in Tijuana by Mexican soldiers on October 26, 2008. Control of the Arellano Felix cartel was passed on to Luis Fernando Sanchez Arellano, the son of Enedina, one of the 4 Arellano sisters. Armando Villarreal Heredia and Edgardo Leiva Escandon acted as his trusted lieutenants. The work of the federal task forces in San Diego and Los Angeles resulted in charges and convictions for most of the Mexican Mafia's active members in Southern California in a series of RICO conspiracy cases. Under the administration of Mexico's President Felipe Calderon, a more cooperative relationship was initiated, and many of the American gang members and Mexican cartel members were extradited to the U.S. Since Popeye's death, the relationship between the Logan Heights gang and the AFO continued, with several becoming top lieutenants. Many of them have suffered violent deaths, others are in custody, and many have cooperated. The latest casualties from Logan Heights and the AFO are Jose Hernandez Garcia Martinez, Sayer, and Benjamin Gutierrez Quechel. Both of their families supported their criminal careers and remain in the U.S. Melvin Gutierrez Queiroz, aka Tecayo, was the top AFO guy from Logan Heights when he was arrested a few years back. He is in Puente Grande. His workers, Logan gang members Benjamin Gutierrez, aka Quechel, brother, and Vejan Jose Hernandez Garcia, were killed by Sinaloa guys in Tijuana. Ignacio Zuzueta Hernandez, aka Pete, may have walked away from house arrest a few years ago. He is also very powerful and loyal to the AFO. His baby's mother was a correctional officer at R.J. Donovan in Oye. She was a dirty California cop. The story of David Popeye Barron is glorified on YouTube by Mexican corridos describing his nefarious exploits. Beginning in San Diego, where he joined the Logan Heights street barrio, Popeye began his gangster life as a sureño. Inside the California state prison system, he joined other sureños who worked as foot soldiers for the Mexican Mafia with the sole vision of becoming the worst of the worst. After demonstrating his ability to undertake executions at a proficient level of performance, he became the head of the Arellano Felix organization's enforcement team, the Corridos Continue, and a member of the Mexican Mafia. Renamed LCH by Benjamin Arellano, it is very likely to conclude Popeye had already reached a juncture in his inglorious career from where there would be no turning back. He made a decision to serve the Master of Darkness and was revered by his cartel associates. Bring more men like yourself, he was encouraged by his AFO bosses. He wholeheartedly proceeded to recruit many of his San Diego homeboys from Logan Heights, training and producing Hope to Die executioners. Reunited in Tijuana with one of his prison mentors, Bat sponsored and recruited Popeye into the Mexican Mafia. The once local Sureño soldier turned cartel big shot had achieved the gang trifecta: street, prison, and cartel member. Sitting on top of the world as a true one percenter, Popeye felt bulletproof and indestructible. He enjoyed the choice of the most beautiful women on the planet, possessed unlimited resources at his disposal, lavish cars and houses, the epitome of a successful gangster. Despite the riches, stature, power, and fame, the 34-year-old Popeye completed his abbreviated career on a Tijuana sidewalk, a brick wall serving as a backdrop and the color of crimson oozing from his head onto the street. As if by prescription, the bullet that penetrated Popeye's eye found its mark with uncanny precision. a gang leader in Logan Heights who became a powerful enforcer and drug trafficker for the AFO. Popeye Barron's deeds will be judged by his maker. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of Paradigm Profiles. For those of you who have questions for the next Q&A, go ahead and drop them in any comment section and we'll find them. I know it's been a while since I dropped profile, but trust me, I'm working on a few that should be coming out in the coming weeks. Also, as I mentioned, if you didn't hear it the other night, Jerry Salazar is joining the PMN team and will be doing a regularly scheduled podcast with me. I'll get back with you guys on the times and days, but most likely we'll be running it around 6:30 or 7 o'clock. I spoke with him about it earlier this morning, and it looks like we're going to be going back on this Friday. So this is when he will be formally introduced as the newest member of the PMN team. As far as Inner Demons, again, I'm trying to stay consistent, but lately I've just been bogged down with trying to do a variety of different content. In closing, if you guys aren't subscribed to our Patreon page, please consider subscribing. We're going to be dropping a lot more of the content YouTube doesn't allow, as well as Jerry's artwork, sections of my second book, pictures, and a variety of other exclusive content. As always, we want to thank all of you for your continued unwavering support, all your positive commentary, and the positive push you guys are always giving us. We appreciate you, the viewers, and we value your support, because without you, we would cease to exist.